Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is MrHurriicane, and today EA put out a deep dive franchise video. It was pretty short, but they talked about some of the new features coming to franchise mode in Madden 22. A lot of this we learned about last week when the game was officially revealed, but there are some new things here, and I took a bunch of screenshots from the video we're going to go through to piece together as much information as we can. The big thing they've talked about already is that Madden 22 is going to have coaching staffs. You'll have your head coach as usual, plus an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and then a player personnel department that's going to be made up, it looks like, of a bunch of scouts. And there is a scouting update coming to the game, but it doesn't appear it'll be there at launch. They're targeting that for the September update. But here on this staff management page, we see the head coach and the coordinator layout. The coordinators have their own schemes, but I'm imagining that's not super relevant when they're coordinators. Maybe it has an impact if they can become head coaches. And each coach has their own talent tree, which is a skill tree similar to really any RPG that you may have played in the last 10-15 years. Or even NCAA 14, which had skill trees for the coaches there. Here's a look at the hire staff page, which shows the coaches, their age, the hiring bonus, which is in the form of staff points, and then how far they are developed in those trees. Situational, execution. This staff moves page shows where all the coaches are going in the hiring cycle, and their age, their status, coaches can retire, and I'm guessing that all these names are like placeholder, because these are all like NFL player names. I don't think this confirms that players can retire and become coaches, but it would make a lot of sense, and they have done it before. I wouldn't be surprised if that is in the game, but I feel like they'll hype it up a little bit if it indeed is. And we'll get some more information this week. There's a Gridiron Notes blog that's going to come out, and they have this new podcast about creating Madden, and maybe we'll get something out of that. But this is the talent tree page. We have, for the head coach, player growth is its own separate tree, and then staff modifications. These talents can mostly be leveled up, not each one, but we do have a few of these talents that are actually shown, and there's going to be 60 plus. They're just basically skills. Secret remedy, decrease multi-week injury recovery time. Pretty simple. This pliability talent, increase injury rating for all defenders. There's also an equivalent one for the offense, and this defensive coordinator tree shows trench play, and then practice makes perfect. I don't know if all coordinators will have the same trees, because I could understand if a defensive coordinator was more specialized in the secondary, having a tree for that would make some sense, and that would make choosing your coordinators all the more important. Here's a player personnel talent tree with trades on one side, contracts on the other, and a lot of talents going into that. This first skill is mentors wanted, trade discount on older players. I'm interested in them laying out what all the talents in the game are, but they've also said they're looking to add more as part of the live service features within franchise. Now we start to get into scouting a little bit, and again, it looks like the bulk of the scouting is going to be introduced in the September update, but the country is broken down by regions, and your scouts are going to be looking in those specific regions for talent. And this reminds me a lot of like the system in MLB The Show. So within this region, we see the top prospects on the right side, the strengths and weaknesses within that region, and then the scout that is focused on that area, their expertise, and which positions they specialize in. Here is the scout hiring screen. They're all given a tier, a position expertise 1, a second position of expertise, and then how much experience they have. It appears you get 4 scouts based on this screen here, a national scout and 3 area scouts, so you'll have to figure out which areas of the country you're trying to scout talent. And based on the expertise, you're going to get an efficiency boost when scouting a certain position. So on the far left, Bill Smith, tier 3 expertise for quarterback. and that's going to give a 15% efficiency boost, whereas Ted Davis only has 1 tier expertise, and that is a 5% boost. So I'm really curious about how all of this works, because what systems are in place to keep you from getting all of the best, most experienced scouts? Because it looks like there's going to be an element of developing your scouts and getting them more experienced and potentially raising their expertise in certain areas. To me, it makes sense to have basically a cap as far as how much you're paying scouts, and to make it so you can't just hire the best. Here's a look at the new draft prospects screen. We have the prospects, archetype, if they're a scheme fit, top 5 projection for all these players, and then a talent. We have it for Devin Patton, 6 to 22, and that's a wide range, and I would like that in scouting to have a little bit less exact information. I wasn't really a fan of the system that told you if a player was an early first round pick or a mid first round pick. It's just giving you the answers to the test, basically. I want scouting to be more difficult, and I want you to have to use more information to make your decisions. And even then, it should not ever be able to be an exact science. I have my doubts about it being what I want exactly, but it sure looks like it's going to be better than the bare bones scouting we've been used to now for way too many years. So on the right side, it shows the completion percentage of how much that player has been scouted. And I imagine that once you get to 100%, you have a very clear idea of how good a player is. But I wonder how difficult it's going to be to get to 100%. Because in games like MLB The Show, it takes a lot of time. Yes, you can get a very clear idea of how good a prospect is at the sacrifice of having less spread out information. You're more focused on a handful of players. So there has to be a trade-off there no matter what. I'm guessing that there's going to be an element of that in here, and I like that for Tony Abraham at the bottom, he's completely unscouted. You don't even know his archetype. I like that. On the left side, it's also showing where players are rising or falling in the rankings, and those are supposed to be changing throughout the season. I really want to see the more in-depth details, what info you're actually given about these players, and I hope you're given context as to why they're rising or falling. If you can see like just their stats from the entire college season, something that basic, their week 1 stats, their week 2 stats, that would be a good start. There's still a lot of unknown when it comes to the scouting. Confirm player selection. Here we have private workouts. These used to be in Madden, and if they work the same way as they did in Madden 12 and NFL Head Coach 09, you will get 100% of the information on these players. Their full scouting profile, completely unlocked. I am pretty sure that's how it's going to work in this game as well. And we now have access to mock drafts, something that was also in NFL Head Coach 09 and is also in 2K. So an idea of where players could be going in the draft. Definitely like this. Want to see how it changes over the course of the season. And this is all we have for scouting right now. We have yet to see an actual scouting profile on a player. They say they're sharing more on scouting later in summer. So we'll wait and see on the rest. Getting into the rest of the information here from the trailer. There's going to be a bit more to do leading up to your games every week. The goal system seems like it's been revamped in conjunction with the staff points to be a little bit more interesting. Here you can choose your weekly team goal selection. You actually get to control your goal and then what reward is there for achieving it. You also have control over your game plan for each opponent, and this page is going to give you some pretty good information showing the top players for your opponents, where they rank in various categories. I usually go to look for this stuff manually. This is so much quicker, and you can choose an offensive game plan that's going to give you bonuses basically to ratings in those areas. So you can choose to attack a team with outside runs, and that's going to improve your outside blocking but decrease your inside blocking. So there's some trade-offs, some risk-reward mechanics there. There is some cool information being shared here. We see an offensive game plan being set up, showing the passer rating at different levels. This situation shows a good passer rating on short and deep passes. And then, what's the game plan and what are the results of choosing that game plan? This is a feature I've wanted to see them add for a while to add some context to each matchup. And hopefully the risk-reward mechanics with the ratings feel like they're in a good spot. That's something that I think we're going to have to experiment with. I've been really wanting some sort of long-term health and fatigue management in Madden. I got a taste of that when I was playing NFL head coach last year especially. And it looks like we're getting some of that now. We see the fatigue here for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. And you can manage your practice based on where your team's at health-wise. This screenshot shows the halftime adjustments where it looks like you can change up your game plan. Maybe your first half game plan failed or it worked really well, and either way, you have to adapt to the second half and what the new focus is going to be. That's pretty cool. Back to player health. Here is the manage player health screen. Every player has a fatigue bar. Everybody in this case is at 100%, and you can choose the practice intensity. The full padded practices give the higher player XP and highest boost, but there's greater injury chance and less fatigue recovery. And it looks like through the reps portion here that you can maybe see that a player needs a rest and decide to give those reps to a backup instead. So I think that this is potentially going to be a very, very big addition. Here's a look at the weekly training that's been in the game, but it now shows the game plan boosts. In the instance of the receivers, we see some catch in traffic, medium route running, catching, and short route running, and where the reps went. So we have normal for the receivers and tight ends, but the quarterback reps were split. They even got a third quarterback involved, which is pretty cool there. I also noticed that Kelce, Demarcus Robinson, and Byron Pringle did not get game plan boosts. I'm not exactly sure why. And whatever practice they did here gave everybody some fatigue recovery, but less recovery for Sammy Watkins. Something else to figure out how that works. Focus XP looks like there's still going to be focus players, but drill XP, bonus XP, that all looks familiar. In the trailer, we also got to see a little bit of the press interviews here, and it looks like these are part of the scenarios they're expanding upon. They said there's 35 plus scenarios in the game right now, and more to come. So here we see Cliff Kingsbury talking to the press, and I'm imagining, I don't know for sure, but I don't think there's going to be any audio with these. I think it's just going to be a new way to display what we've had in the game previously, which at certain times a journalist will give you a scenario and ask you a few questions. This is just a better way of experiencing it, I believe. But they will ask you questions, and looks like the answers are going to have some sort of game plan effect. Where does the game plan start for a player like him? They're talking about Russell Wilson. How do you want to focus on him? They did go into one specific scenario, talking about how an elite quarterback can trigger a breakout opportunity for a receiver lower on the depth chart. So in this case, they had it for Russell Wilson and rookie receiver Dwayne Eskridge. They didn't show like the requirements for getting him a breakout opportunity, but I imagine it'll be similar to what's already in the game for breakouts. Here is a look at the new franchise main hub page, and it looks like there's a lot of nice quality of life fixes in here. This main page shows you the standings, your next matchup, some top players it looks like from that matchup, and your goals on the right side. Looks like just less button clicks to get to information. The left side shows all of the things to do from franchise as it is currently, plus a few more things with manage roster, returning from injury, weekly strategy. Here's what the news tab looks like now. Pretty similar to what we had before, but with a better interface. This screenshot is actually from the off-season. Looks like it's the same setup. Your re-sign, your 4 weeks of free agency and scouting, and then the draft comes up. I notice here that the Scout College Players is also in Free Agency 1, whereas it usually shows up in Free Agency 2. And from this main page, you can see your salary cap and how many players are currently on the roster. Here's a look at the League tab, and this is nice if you want to take a look at your league as a whole. All the matchups there. Looks like the games haven't been played yet in this case. And then all the top performers on the right side. Much easier to see the league leaders. I definitely like that. Now, I'm reaching a little bit here just because this is such little information. But I notice in the receiving leaders, those are probably slot receivers. Crowder and Keenan Allen definitely. Has the sim engine been fixed so that slot receivers are not the ones leading every team? I like that the sim stats here are showing maybe a few more yards than usual for the running backs, but sim stats are an issue in Madden, and I want to know if they've been addressed at all. This isn't much to work off of, but I don't like what I see on the right side here, with receivers at the top maybe getting to 1,300 yards by the end of the year, and usually it's slot receivers. That's an issue. Last thing here, for those of you playing online franchise, a really nice page showing everybody that is in control of all the teams and their status for that given week. And apparently how many times their game has started. What's going on with that Vikings player? 11 starts. Anyway, that's about everything I took away from this like 4 or 5 minute trailer. Some really good things, but still a lot of unknowns. Like, we know scouting is going to be different. It looks like it's going to be better, but we haven't seen a scouting profile yet. I like the game plan features and that we're going to have a bit more to do between games. But I also wonder about things like the sim stats. How about the scheduling logic? Have they made it so week 17 is always against a division opponent? Will preseason schedules be shuffled and not the same every season? Still some things that I want some answers to, and we'll see if we get more later this week. They're focused on that, it looks like, with this trailer, a deep dive coming out, I think, Friday. And if there's anything else to talk about, I will be doing that here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think of these changes down below in the comment section. Personally, in a year's time, it looks like they've spent, some resources and time adding some quality things into franchise mode. We don't have a full picture yet, but it's a lot more than we've had for a couple of years. And some of these upgrades could have a very meaningful difference in the mode. But that is it for me today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.